Welcome to the Human Advantage podcast, where culture is created, not claimed. We've been talking about culture for years, but most companies still reduce people to check boxes that are supposed to define an entire human being. We hire for familiarity, we reward sameness, and then wonder why teams struggle. The problem isn't talent, it's the system. And this podcast is about changing that. Diversity beyond checkboxes, culture add over culture fit, and how people think is the real differentiator. Because people aren't categories, they're the advantage.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Human Advantage podcast. I, Devon Walker, am joined with my co-host Adam Kleckner and today's guest, Eric Richardson, a cybersecurity, AI risk, and compliance leader with more than 30 years of experience helping organizations build safer, smarter technology systems. Eric has led teams across some of the biggest names in tech, worked on cybersecurity, AI standards, and authored a book on prompt engineering and supply chain cybersecurity, and describes himself as a neurodivergent advocate. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome, buddy. So we'll be, obviously we get a lot of, I'm going to just call it out, tech nerds in the podcast that will be interested on the tech side of this, but it is also called the Human Advantage podcast. So we want to make sure we touch on kind of the human side of technology. We're both familiar with your leadership style, kind of different ways of thinking, and give everybody just a holistic viewpoint of kind of tech and the landscape that is being built on the human side and the AI side, because I think you'll have a really fascinating perspective. But to give the audience a little bit of background, man, you put it in your LinkedIn, so don't quote me on this. The 30 years, man, you've been doing this a while. So
that's why my knees hurt so much.
Yeah, I feel you, dude. I feel you.
Just a number, it's fine.
Yeah. I wish that was true. So with 30 years in this, man, I'm curious to kind of set the backdrop. What originally pulled you into that world?
Oh, geez. So I'm one of those people who, I think did a pretty good job of choosing his parents well. My family on my dad's side has been involved in technology literally since the 1880s. My great-great-great-grandfather was the phone company in the little town he lived in. His son went on, pardon?
He said, no way. That's awesome. That's it's crazy to think that history.
Then his son ended up becoming a first-generation electrical engineer because it didn't exist before that. Then his son, my grandfather, was an electrical engineer. My dad's an electrical engineer. My brother's an electrical engineer. I took a year of electrical engineering and realized I didn't want to be an electrical engineer. So I'm, I went way, way, way off base and became a, computer scientist. But as for like what I'm doing professionally, because my dad was my dad, when I was a kid, I was 10 years old, and he built a home computer in 1976. It was an Altair 8800. That is the PC that Gates and Allen wrote BASIC on for their first collaboration. Of course, that became Microsoft. And my brother and I, who's 2 years older than me, we learned to program in BASIC because we wanted to play games. And you would buy games by buying a book, and you would type it in. And because we were terrible typists, we had to learn how to debug our crappy code.
That's awesome, man.
And that led me into tech.
What a story, dude. That's amazing. That's so crazy to think. I mean, let's be real. Somebody had to break that cycle, right? So, 100 plus years of electrical engineering, someone had to.
But we're still tech. We're still tech.
It was still tech, yeah.
And even my kids, one's a video game tester. She's got 10 years or 6 years of video game testing, and the other has a degree in video game design, which is kind of cool because, like, my wife has a degree in film. So the kid, video game is this really cool mishmash of the artistic storytelling of movies and the techie that I do. So it's cool.
That's amazing, man. I love that.
I mean, I think it's so great because you can kind of you can see the storyline of your lineage, and then even with you and your wife, and how your kids are where they are now.
Yeah.
I will say I think it's kind of interesting because obviously you and your family above, very technical. But for you, even chatting with you, working with you in the past, very big into culture, partnership, and empowering teams. Very different from the technical side. I guess where did that human side come from? What is that all about?
Growing up with a typical engineer dad. And I mean that, not necessarily, he lives a stereotype, having friends and brothers and stuff like that. It was, first of all, the way the tech hit it was, okay, tech could be fun. Like my experience with tech was fun, not work, right? So I came at it from that experience. So I saw it as this fun thing. Then I saw it becoming this enabling thing. And there was always the human side of it, right? It was like,
Yep.
video games. It's like, that's an important thing. And I mean, it sounds silly, but video games are a way to potentially socialize nowadays and,
Yeah.
blow steam off. And, instead of watching TV, you play a video game. So it's got that weird human connection. And, that was the day of the arcade, right? 19,
Yep.
I was a little kid in the 70s. But I remember going to the arcades. You go with your friends and your stack of quarters and you go hang out with them. So there's always I always saw technology, yes, as an enabling power, but also as a connecting power. And, I started playing video games when Pong came out, and it would get all four brothers together around the TV and, get the parents to watch us do that. And it was a weird kind of thing because we didn't, you know, everybody kind of did their own thing, but we'd play video games. We come together and do it. So anyway, I always
Yeah.
thought, I just, I got lucky and I grew up to see that happen. And I saw that it has this huge connecting ability, and I just never stopped tech.
I love that, man. It's a great way to think about the human side of technology, because obviously right now with AI and robots and everybody's saying, okay,
Yeah.
everything's gonna be controlled by robots. I think it's easy to lose sense of the creativity in
Yeah.
technology, and
Yeah.
the different ways of thinking, and what technology can create, but behind all that creation are humans, right?
Yeah.
Who put that into play and who come up with those ideas and think of those things. So I love your perspective there on how technology can still bring us together. It's not going
Yeah.
to divide it. It's not going to be all robots. We're all not obsolete yet, at
Yeah.
least. And I think there is still that power in technology to bring us together. So what one thing that we've connected over, obviously Devon and I talk about our neurodivergence a lot on this podcast and joke about it, but you have in your headline have kind of the neurodiverse advocate profile in there, and
Yeah.
anytime I see that, I always raise my hand. I'm like, my people, like, yes, I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets
So
us.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly, right. If you're comfortable sharing, like, how does your neurodiversity shape the way you think, lead, problem solve? Like, where does that come into your work?
I think one of the best ways it manifests itself is simply not coming at a problem from the standard way that people attack problems.
Yeah.
I literally, my mind works a little bit differently than, your average person on the street. And I think that's that's one of the things that makes those of us who are creative potentially.
Yeah.
Yes, there are downsides to it, right? But there's also upsides to it. It lets me latch onto something and not let it go, sometimes to an unhealthy extent. But, but being a cybersecurity guy, it lets one of the things I found when it is really hitting the fan, I get weirdly calm. I get when the worse the crisis, the more it's like, cool, no problem. You do this, you do this, you do this. Let's respond. Can get to, and it's just, I'm living the flow.
Yeah.
Because, oh wow, I've got 7 things to think about. How is that different than Thursday? It's not.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so, and I think it is also why so many of us are drawn to tech,
Yeah.
because tech is not a natural thing, right? In a sense. So I think a lot of us are drawn to that because we like, those of us who need structure, like the structure side of it. Those of us who don't need it can also get that there. So
Right.
technology itself is a spectrum. You know,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
just not ASD that's a spectrum. Neurodiversity is its own kind of spectrum.
Right.
And all of us little, individuals can find our Lego piece in tech to click into.
Yeah. I love for the audience who's listening to this, I've repeated this statement before, but you're talking about the chaos and how you're like, oh, that's
Yep.
comfortable for me. Like, my
Yep.
favorite quote that resonates so much with me on the ADHD side is, I think it was an NFL quarterback who said this, who he said, people with ADHD, we find comfort in the chaos and create chaos in the calm. And I'm like, it's so true, right? Like when things are nuts and you're juggling a million things, that's when I settle in and I'm like, awesome. I got a bunch of stuff to do. I got things everywhere. Like that's where my brain naturally goes.
Yeah.
But if I have nothing to do, it's terrible for me. Like my wife will tell you, we're on vacation, man. I'm the worst person at sitting still by the pool. I can't do it. I can't.
Boredom is
Yes.
and my wife once described it to me, I thought brilliantly. We were talking about dogs, which, Australian Shepherds, the work dogs, they love to be busy. And she said, if an Aussie's bored, they get destructive. And then she turned to me and said, kind of like you, it's just like, yeah, I don't do bored well.
Wrong.
I do not do bored well.
Yeah, not wrong.
I find projects. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Right. Make one up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where technology can help you. Oh, cool. I'm going to vibe code an app I wanted to build. Oh, cool. That's neat.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
no, I think that's a great thing. I mean, I love vibe coding. I think it's great until I realize how many tokens I've used. But like with AI, like you could do anything so quickly, good or bad. Like I guess what advice would you give people for them like before they rush into AI or even like in the midst of it? Because it's a rabbit hole. Like
yeah. Spend some time learning about what it actually means. Vibe coding is a perfect example. It's a great example. But one of the things, with my cybersecurity hat on that scares me to death is a well-meaning person in a company who isn't a trained developer, who's honestly trying to do something helpful. Cool, I've vibe coded this Excel sheet to take all the HR data and export it here. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Think about the data you're there, outside of, GDPR and, you might be breaking laws, all over the world, but it's just like, protect people's stuff. This is their personal information. You got to be careful about that, but they might be totally well-meaning,
Right.
And, I don't want to discourage people from getting into it because it is an incredibly, again, enabling tool, but there's the risk of what are you going to do with it? Or, security context, like, why was this person doing this stuff? Well, it was the code they wrote. They weren't trying to be malicious. They weren't trying to exfil data. Their app did. And they had, so that's kind of one of the things that scares me. But it's also, again, it's enabling. So take the time to learn. Take that time to learn about what it means. Talk to somebody who's doing it. Think about security. Like my job is to be professionally paranoid. So I think about what can break first almost all the time.
There's consequences to everything, right?
Exactly.
Realize there's consequences to everything. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Totally. I think, so, obviously technology is moving, it feels like, faster than it ever has before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do companies keep people at the center when the technology starts moving faster than what the culture can catch up to it?
Yeah. Well, culture and technology not move at the same speed. So it's what, and it's not that one's always faster than the other. It's dependent, and a lot of it's dependent on the company.
For sure.
So, there's this slightly overused phrase, but it's very, very real, human in the loop, right? Where, okay, you're using AI, have a human verify that what's coming out is right and, isn't hallucinating or stuff like that. But it applies to technology in general. Think about the human side of this technology. So like real world example that we're seeing in the news, companies are saying, oh, cool, we're just going to use AI and replace all of our junior developers. Okay, so that means all your senior developers are doing nothing but reviewing code. They're not writing code. They're fixing AI code. They're integrating with it. And in 5 years' time, when they move on, what are you going to do? You're going to be beholden to companies who the AI SaaS companies, and they'll token you to death. We talked about token a couple minutes ago. So actually, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be this wave where companies are going AI, and then all of a sudden, holy cow, our tokens are so incredibly expensive. Pull back. Well, we don't have anybody to code. Oh no. So there's this, and we're seeing it all over. There's this wave of layoffs happening. I think in a couple of years, it's going to reverse all of a sudden when they're going to realize the SaaS companies have them by the throat. And it's like, we're going to charge you whatever we want to.
Dude, it's so funny you bring that up because I was having this thought in conversation the other day where companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on tokens, and I'm going, you do realize like at some point that tipping scale is going to hit where the tokens
Yep.
cost more than the
Yep.
humans,
Yep.
and you still need the humans to keep the AI in check. You still
Yep.
need to be creative. You still have to innovate. Like you need the human side there, but I do think we're going to hit a tipping point where the token expenditure cost vastly outweighs the salary
Yep.
cost of humans. And then what balances that scale will be really interesting to see over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And, by extension, there's this, it's also making the rounds, a picture from a 1979 IBM training manual that said a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make management decisions, right? I think that's showing up. A lot of us are seeing that in our LinkedIn feeds. That still applies. That still applies. And I think that's kind of to an extent what's happening. People are just going, oh, just, optimize this. Well, don't, put the human in the loop, consider it and think about what it means, both for the people, because you're affecting humans, but also really from your bottom line, long term, is it your best strategic decision? Might not be.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, I have a buddy of mine who their company laid off 8% of their overall company, most of them being engineers.
Yep.
And leadership said, hey, just use tokens.
Right.
In 1 month, they used up 8 months supply of tokens. And it was like, guys, like, that's going to be real expensive down the road.
That's not cheap.
Like, even now. Yeah. So I guess the big question is for these leaders, because there's obviously a big push to lay people off and then just tokenize everything.
Yep.
Like, what are the considerations in the short term or even in the long term that these people should be thinking about in these AI integrations, like company-wide?
Yeah, it's what are the actual benefits you're getting from it? How can it actually be? You want to use AI, as a competitive advantage, right? I'm putting my MBA hat on now. It's like, right, you should use it. You should, and that's what, try to use technology to give you a competitive advantage. So laying people off isn't always a competitive advantage. It might be a bottom line advantage, but think about it strategically, think about it long term. So I think that could be like one of the areas where they're being nearsighted, kind of back to what we were just talking about, how they're going to realize all of a sudden, we made a real big, because, here in Western Washington, we've seen a ton of companies have a lot of layoffs.
Yes.
And it is, we're just going to flip to, go AI. It's not unlike, like, this is the third great revolution I've seen in my career. When I was a young baby developer, it was, internet, right? It's gonna kill brick and mortar stores. No, they evolved, right? And in fact, like Barnes and Noble, and I'm thrilled to see this because I love bookstores. Shock. Like they're expanding, right? So they evolved. All you did is force an evolution. It didn't fundamentally kill them off. Then the second great evolution was everything going to the cloud.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cloud is really just, what is it? It's just servers in a data center. What did you have before? Servers in a data center. All that changed was who owns the servers. So again, it's not, it seems like it's going to be this giant hype cycle, and I think AI is going to be the same thing. AI is an incredible tool that will always be around. And it is a hugely enabling thing for humans, but it's not a panacea. And it's just like all the .com companies, like when I was early career, I was a CTO of a little startup. I had a staff of like 3 people. And I was working in Manhattan, and like all the little .coms died. Why? None of them had business models, but they were all getting funded because the venture capitalists thought it would be cool, and they fund them and they all lost their money. To an extent, it's going to happen again. There's going to be a die-off of AI. But the ones that remain, whatever those may be, and I don't know what they're going to be, that's going to be the powerhouse that drives the next revolution.
Yeah, totally agree. It reminds me of, the world did not stop when the clock ticked 0 on Y2K, right? Like
exactly.
Everybody thought, the world's ending, every computer in the world's going to crash, and guess what? They were just fine, right? I think that's kind of where we're at, right? we're all panicking over AI, and things will change clearly, and I think for the better. And it's going to take a few years for it to settle out, but I think your analysis is super spot on. But again, not to focus all on AI, but I do think it's a really interesting topic for a lot of people listening right now, because there is this uncertainty around it. But we do call this the Human Advantage podcast for a reason. I still think humans are going to be there for a long time.
Absolutely.
I still think I still think there's a need for it. The roles may change some, that things might shift, but I
Exactly.
do think human judgment still matters the most, right? And the end user for most of these AIs is still going to be a human on the other end. And
Yep.
so, in a world that is increasingly shaped by AI, where do you think the human judgment matters the most?
Well, if you're talking about, in the corporate world, it's still going to be humans need to make the final decisions. Like when you
Yeah,
start spending money and doing stuff, we've had decision systems for years and years and years. You know, the 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 mathematical probability and statistic of machine learning that AI is built on, it goes back to the 1950s,
right,
and
right.
it's not new. Even the term artificial intelligence goes back to then. So again, it's just an enhancing a tool, but like the humans should always be the ones making the final decision about uh anything really, really important. And don't be
Yeah,
too quick to jump on the, "Hey, this is cool tech, I'm gonna dive into it," train. And there is a lot of that. And again, I work in AI. I think it's fabulous. I think it's an incredible technology, and will be hugely impactful, but it's not everything.
yeah.
And, a lot of companies that really don't have a huge need to be involved in it are like, "Cool, we need to dive in there." Not necessarily. Let the other companies suss it out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trying to save face going on. It's like, we are AI enabled. Well, don't so necessarily good. Just like with the cloud 15, 20 years ago. Oh, we're all cloud. Well, how is that benefiting us? So
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
always a good thing.
yeah,
We look at that in the
yeah,
recruiting space all the time, where
yeah.
there's all these new AI tools and AI things, and now AI interviewers, and there's a ton of funny memes and things going wrong with that.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
like, do you really think the first impression somebody wants of your company is talking to a robot that
Right,
doesn't understand them and keeps saying, I don't know what you mean. Like, what do you
right.
that like you're
Exactly.
gonna lose every senior leader that's interviewing. It's gonna be like,
Absolutely.
nope, not dealing with this shit. I'm out.
Right.
Like,
Because you could
good
still
luck.
tell, you
Yeah.
could still tell. Yes, a Turing test works for a short conversation. Yes, absolutely. But an extended interview, you're gonna know.
Yeah,
You're gonna
for sure. For sure.
I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, the amount of tools that I see, like AI, that are popping up, I'm like, is it better than a Boolean?
know. Mhm.
Not.
Right,
Don't
right,
try to sell it to me. It's
right,
as easy as
right.
that. Yeah,
It-
but I think that's really common in like even outside of recruiting in like the corporate world. Like, I think because AI is being shoved down everybody's throats, and honestly, it is the shiny new thing. I guess if I'm a leader, where should I look in being like, hey, what are either the questions that I should be asking? Should I jump on this? Should I wait? If I do jump on this, like, where do I look towards?
Yeah, look for a place where you really think it could benefit you. Understand, spend the time to say, look, what are the actual helpful AI tools? And like, okay, maybe candidate screening, fine. Don't have it actually do that first screen, right? When you do that tech screen, right? I mean, I've been hiring people, for decades. You guys have, I mean, you guys do this
Yep.
professionally. That first tech screen, you've got to, a human is still going to react better than any algorithm or stack of algorithms, something like that. Um,
100%.
as an example, but it's look for the need you have. Don't find a tool and find the need. Find a need and then go look for a tool that fits it. Because there are wonderful tools out there. I mean, a lot of the automation workflows out there that's AI enabled, incredible stuff, right?
Yep.
Kinds and I mean, there's dozens of them. You can automate your life kind of stuff, but it's not the cure for everything. It's not the cure for
Yeah.
everything. So
I think
spend
it's interesting you bring up the tech screen side, because we've had this conversation a lot where, you know, yeah, okay, a tech screen, and lots of times they'll have you go code in a artificial, environment. Can you code Python? Like, yeah,
right.
Python is the tool. It's not
Yeah.
the skill. You
Right.
have to still flush out in a tech screen how somebody thinks
Right.
about utilizing that
Right.
tool to solve the business outcomes. Coding is
Exactly.
not just typing random things and hoping you get what it, like, you have to understand the architecture. You have to understand what the input means and what that
Yeah.
gives you for the output. And I think tech screens, too often when you automate them, you don't get the minutia of how is somebody thinking about the code. You may get the code wrong, but if you understand the concept and the theory, you may be able to go, I can work with this guy. He understands
Yeah.
the architecture, he understands what we're trying to solve. And I don't think you get that nuance of unique thinking and different thinking by just having people code in an
Yeah.
artificial environment, but ran by AI, right?
Yeah.
And so I still think
Yeah.
even with tech screens, there's a huge human element to this
Absolutely.
that people don't realize.
That
Yeah.
you know how important it is to read people, right?
Yeah, that's
And when you're
exactly.
doing a text screen, also make sure you're not hearing typity, typity, typity. You can see them reading. Like, okay, I'm
Or
going to make a
another
mental note.
voice in the background telling
Right.
them what the
Yeah.
yeah, that trust me, we've seen
For
it all,
I
Eric.
equal 1 to N. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done this a long time. We've seen
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
trick in the book. Yeah.
I mean, even for me, I used to do tech screenings like
Yeah.
6 months into this, which was terrible for the company for me to do. But like,
Yeah.
we'd be doing these like coding tests, and they're like, "Hey, I'm doing this, this, this because I'm assuming that they have these constraints."
Yeah.
Or I'm doing this because this long term will be more scalable. But then you run the code, and it's like, it's not good. It
Right.
kind of sucks. But long term wise, it's like, no, I know how they think. I know how this is going to scale theoretically.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
long term is better. But in AI screening, they're not going to see those variables.
Exactly.
You don't get the nuances. Yeah.
Which is why it's a true question, right? Instead of saying code this, it's like, okay, if I'm linting this code and it breaks here, what's going on? Oh, that's not a coding question. It's a coding adjacent question.
That's exactly right. That's spot on. You get how somebody thinks. And looking at that, like, let's cycle back slightly to the neurodiversity side, because I think cybersecurity, your field, we've seen this a ton, but I don't know if a lot of people realize this. It's a huge field for pattern recognition, systems thinking, curiosity, right? And I think that's one of the most underrated skills on a developer's curiosity.
Yes.
So where do you think those neurodivergent thinkers, or it doesn't even have to be necessarily neurodivergent, but people who think outside the box, right? People who look at things differently. Where do you think those thinkers bring strengths that are still kind of under-recognized in that space?
Yeah. And I think you hit on a couple where pattern recognition is something, right? Where you step back and, you do the meme where you see all the numbers floating and all the mathematics. But I mean, realistically, the ability to identify patterns. And I've talked to other people, folks who are like ASD and go, hey, do you actually like sometimes like visually see? And, yeah, I do. It's like, okay, it's not just me, but cybersecurity is completely about patterns. That's how you recognize good guys from bad guys, and our ability to, I mean, it's how we identify 0 days. It's a pattern. It's not just, something broke. It's like, okay, well, that could just be an environment issue, but these people all have it. So being able to see that's something, and the ability to have nonlinear thinking, to have those flashes of insight, that's something that you build up data, you observe, and you make that jump. It's kind of like the Gladwell book where he talked about, I think it's called Flash or whatever it was, where it's like, and all of us, well, basically, that's really what it, boiling it down to one sense is it's like absorb information, let your mind process it, and then spit it out. And I think a lot of folks are good at that, who are good at that, fit really, really well in technology and cybersecurity. Because those are important. Or I mean, it could be data analysis. Doesn't have to be that. Database design. Heck, even accountants, right? Auditors, right? I'm shocked, and I think it's incredible how auditors can go through, all this stuff and find what's good and not. And I think it's fascinating to watch. I wouldn't want to do that for a job, but it's the same. I mean, they're thinking the same kind of way. It's the same skill set, but applied just in a different field.
I think you touched on something, you kind of glossed over it, but we laugh at it, but it is true. I think this stigma around pattern recognition becomes the Forrest Gump or the Rain Man that is like, oh, you see all these things. See it's like, no, not necessarily. Lots of times it's the hyperfixation and the obsession with asking why. Why did this go wrong? Why did this break? Why did this go? And that's the way my brain works, right? Like I can't give you a solution if I don't understand the why. If I know the why, I can reverse engineer why we're getting there.
Absolutely.
If there is no why, I'm wasting my time. I'm not going to do it, right? But I think that's not a magical equation. That's how our brain naturally is curious and going, hey, this is what we're trying to solve. Now I can reverse engineer it, and I will hyperfix on say that till my wife goes, dude, are you going to pick up the kids? And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah.
Oh no.
Right?
But if you take that with you, I've been managing people for decades. And that's one of the things that's super important. Because when I was a very early developer, they would say, do this. And I'd say, why? And I wasn't trying to be obstinate. I had to understand why. And it's crucial to me, ever since then, to tell the devs and the team I'm working with or for me is like, here's why we're doing this, because I think that completes it. And if you don't want to know, cool, you can jettison that information. But most people appreciate knowing why. Why the hell am I doing this?
Neurotypical or neurodivergent, but I also think that's what makes you a great leader, man, is your experience with that space of going, I always ask this and it would be combative, or people would not understand neurodivergent. And I think some people don't associate neurodivergence with leaders and with stakeholders. I'm like, no, you don't understand, man. We've had VPs of engineering, we've had VPs of healthcare, we've had CEOs on in my opinion, Silicon Valley was born out of neurodivergence. Every tech founder down there was, they created these companies because they thought differently. And I think we associate neurodivergence with sometimes, more lower level or junior type candidates. I'm like, no. Most of the leadership is neurodivergent in a way. And I think that's what makes you a great leader, is you understand, hey, for my brain to work, I need to know the why. Guess what? That works well for neurotypical people too. Everybody, like, we all need to know what direction we're going. And so I love seeing you kind of translate the way your brain works into how to be a more effective leader.
Yeah. And that's why in tech hubs, you have a lot of kids in the next generation who are neurodivergent because people like us go move there, and it's so, Western Washington, the Silicon Valley, guess what? There are a lot of people like us there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot more of us anyway. I mean,
we are legion.
The new data coming out is, 53% of Gen Z millennials associate with some form of neurodivergence. I'm like, guess what? We're not the weird kids anymore.
But I will say, we've always been there. Nothing caused. There's no environmental. It's just it's biologic. They exist.
100%.
I'm sure Ben Franklin was in the best possible way. Leonardo da Vinci, absolutely. A lot of
100%.
the geniuses of the past. Look at the Renaissance men and women. Classic examples. Painter, sculptor, architect. Like, one of us.
I mean, you can even look at Henry Ford. You can have any color car you want as long as it's black. It's made the exact same way every time. You're going to tell me that that's not some form of neurodivergence?
There's a little bit of spectrum there, huh? Right? Yeah. It's not, and they jokingly call that, well, for us, it's peer review. It's not a diagnosis, it's peer review.
Right. I love that.
There it is.
So let's do this. Let's wrap this with what we do this at the end with the lightning round. So, Eric, I've prefaced this every episode. I'm the worst at this. Neurodivergent people are usually the worst. I don't keep anything to one sentence or one word. You can ask my wife; she'll attest to that. But we try to
maybe one phrase.
Yeah, we try to condense quick answers on this. So, what's one cybersecurity myth that you wish would stop immediately?
Cybersecurity myth. So I think a good one is that the biggest weakness are humans. Actually, the biggest cause is that the bad guys are out there and it's all cyber and it's all code. No, it's humans. We're the weakness. The wetware. We always are. We're open to scams. We're open to that person I talked about in the first part of it who were trying to. I'm giving a long answer.
Yeah,
humans are the weakness.
I hear you. We're the ones who click on the box that that when instead of looking at the email and saying, why somebody from Microsoft have a Gmail email? That's weird.
Right, exactly. It's not some nefarious one world government out there. It's humans trying to just making mistakes.
Totally. Okay, what's one AI buzzword that you're tired of?
Automation.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, it is great automation. It really is. And agentic AI is cool, but we still need human judgment. It's not. Don't turn it over. Put that human in the middle.
Okay, so touching on that, then, what's one human skill every tech team still needs?
Humanity, the ability to say, "I don't know. Let's work together on this." And I will say, for a lot of people like us, because I'm speaking autobiographically, but I bet it's going to resonate. When I was a kid, I thought and hoped I was smart. I thought I was. And I was determined to try to prove to the world I was smart. I was determined. And it took me a long time. It took me till, I was, 5 years in my career to you know what? I need to stop trying to prove to everybody I'm smart, because I'm really trying to prove to me I'm smart, and I already know I'm smart.
Yeah.
And therefore, not knowing something went from something to avoid to something to seek.
Yes.
That's
And
a good
That's a
one.
great one.
that was my own humility lesson for myself, that it was just like, yep, stop trying to show the entire world I know everything all the time. It's just like, it's okay to say I don't know, because
Totally.
turn it into the
Yeah.
enjoyment of learning. But that came with years.
Totally.
That came with years.
Yeah.
But I
I
think
think that's so much
with
more common than people think.
it is, and that will lead me by next one, because I think with years of understanding and learning how your brain works, that's,
Yeah.
like I said, what makes you a great leader. So, what is one underrated leadership trait?
Yeah, are we talking neurodiverse or standard?
Any leadership,
Either
yeah,
one,
just an underrated leadership trait that you think more leaders should be adopting.
Be genuine. Be
That's a great one.
genuine. Don't
Yeah.
toe the company line. If you disagree with it, it's okay to say I don't agree with this. But for God's sake, support your people.
Ugh.
And you don't have to agree with them. Like the worst thing that it ever said to me, professionally or possibly personally, was a former manager who went, "Well, you took acting classes in college. Just pretend you're not ADHD."
Oh, that's so bad. That is so bad.
It's like, wow.
You might have given me a new one there. I always say I think that the best traits in leadership are empathy and curiosity, but
Yeah,
I would add genuineness into that as
they
well.
tie together.
They really do.
It's like a
That's like the
triangle, the three
perfect
of them.
triangle. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic one.
because those were the other two I was going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a perfect triangle though. That's a great one to add in. All right, one sci-fi movie or book, because I know we all geek
The
out
tough
here.
one.
They
Oh my
got
God.
technology, yeah, right. They got technology surprisingly right.
Okay, so it's timely. Uh, Project Hail Mary, but it's a book I've loved since it came out. I got it like as soon as it came out. I've read it 3
Okay.
or 4 times, saw the
Okay.
movie a bunch of times, absolutely loved it. It nails the realities of iterative scientific problem solving, just like The Martian did.
Yep.
Same author. Engineering side of it, the cross disciplinary skill set between the two leads, it's just awesome. And the book goes way more into it than the movie. And the movie is fantastic. Absolutely can't recommend it enough. But the book was even better for science thinking geeks.
I love that. I love that. All right, last question that we always roll with here. So obviously, us in the talent space and what we do, we're really big on a resume does not tell the picture
Yeah,
of who somebody
yeah,
is. And it's a predictor of what you've done in one environment. It's a terrible predictor of
yeah.
what you could do in somebody else's environment, right? So what is one thing that is essential to who you are and how you show up in the workforce that would never show up on your resume?
Passion for smart iteration. Whether I'm going into the complexity of, I don't know, an AI framework, or spending days at home perfecting a sourdough recipe. I mean, it's the same because I'm a baker,
Yep.
which has
Yeah, I
nothing to do
love
with
it.
computers. Uh, it's still the same iteration, and you make it better, and you make it better, and you're constantly getting better and learning.
Yep.
And they all tie together. There's a curiosity that shows up there, but I think a passion for smart iteration is a absolute way that I would self-describe.
I love that. I love that. I don't know, man. It's making sourdough might have to do with computers because yeah, I'm a firm believer. I think a lot of our hobbies and a lot of what we end up doing outside of work dictates it, and there's a correlation to how we think and how we look at work. So
Baking is science you eat. Baking is science you
yeah.
eat. Absolutely. It's biological science. It's thermodynamics. I mean, oh my God. Yeah. And it's delicious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't eat your keyboard, but you can eat the bread
No.
afterwards for
That,
sure.
yeah.
For
And you
sure.
can always try.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the next invention, edible keyboards. There you go. So man, I appreciate you taking the time to do this because I think with so much panic around AI, and I know we touched on that, I think we could touch on a million other
Oh
things,
my God. Yeah.
talking to you, but I think it's great to hear somebody looking at it through that kind of middle ground lens. Like, hey, we've done this, we've lived through these things before. This
Yeah.
isn't the first panic scenario. Humans still exist and they are going to exist and they have a place in the workforce. I think it's fantastic to hear someone with some common sense knowledge around that stuff, because I think we need more of that instead of the doom and gloom in the news, that grabs the headlines. So appreciate you taking some time to do this, man. I think people will take a lot away from this and really appreciate it. And we'll have to do it again, because like I said, we
love
touched
to
on,
anytime.
I think maybe a third of what we could have touched on, if even. So yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone, and until next time.
Thanks a lot.